All right, everybody, welcome back to BookKast. You know how we do it here, right? We bring you the bestsellers, but like in minutes.
That's right, bestsellers in minutes. I'm Sarah,
And I'm Hall,
and today we're diving deep into The Art Thief, a true story of love, crime, and a dangerous obsession by Michael Finkel.
Ooh, this one's juicy. I know a lot of you requested it, and I gotta say, it's a real page-turner. It's nonfiction, though, like a true crime kind of thing.
It is. It reads like a thriller, though.
Okay.
You know you can't put it down.
So we're talking about Stéphane Breitwieser, right? This guy was like a master art thief.
Exactly. He stole hundreds of pieces of art from museums all over Europe. For almost a decade, he was basically unstoppable.
Yeah, and Finkel does such a great job, like, really getting into Breitwieser's head, you know? Figuring out what made this guy tick, using interviews and court documents, and even Breitwieser's own book, Confessions of an Art Thief.
Yeah, that's an interesting source, too, because you get his perspective, but, like, you have to take it with a grain of salt, right?
Totally. So where do we even begin with a story like this? Like, what makes someone become an art thief of this magnitude?
I think you got to go back to his childhood. Finkel talks about how Breitwieser grew up in Alsace, France. His family actually had an appreciation for antiques. Like, his father was a big collector. Furniture, weapons, paintings, watches, ivory, you name it.
Wow, so he was surrounded by beautiful objects from a young age.
Exactly. And I think that planted a seed, you know, this fascination with the past and with beautiful historical things.
But it wasn't all rosy, right? Like, his childhood wasn't perfect.
Right. He was described as a moody kid, kind of prone to anxiety, and apparently his parents' relationship was pretty rocky. His dad was really strict, and his mom was kind of all over the place emotionally.
So not exactly a stable home life. Did that contribute to his, his later actions?
It's hard to say for sure, but the book definitely suggests that it played a role. And then when his parents divorced in 1991, his dad took all the antiques with him.
Oh, wow. I bet that was tough for him.
Yeah, it sounds like he felt a real sense of loss and maybe even some resentment towards his father. Like his dad had taken away something that was really important to him.
So this fascination with antiques, a troubled family life, was art theft like his first brush with the law?
Actually, no. Finkel talks about how he got into some petty crime as a teenager, like shoplifting clothes and stuff. And then right before he turned 20, he got a job as a museum guard.
A museum guard? That's ironic.
Right. And it's like that job kind of gave him the blueprint for his future crimes. He learned about museum security procedures, saw the weaknesses firsthand, and he actually stole something from the museum he was guarding.
So he started small, but what was the real turning point? When did he go from petty thief to this master art thief that we're talking about?
The book points to a very specific moment. In 1994, he visited the Fan Museum and saw this flintlock pistol, an early 18th century one, and he just fell in love with it, like head over heels. It wasn't just admiration, it was this intense need to possess it.
Wow, almost like an obsession.
And it was his girlfriend at the time, Anne-Catherine Kleinklaus, who encouraged him to steal it. She was like, just take it. So they did. And that seems to have been the start of his art thieving career.
Anne-Catherine, huh? She becomes a pretty important figure in this story, right?
Oh, yeah. Initially, she was hesitant, but then she became his accomplice and look out for most of his heists. Like they were a team.
A Bonnie and Clyde of the art world. Okay, so let's talk about the how. How did he actually manage to steal all this art? He wasn't exactly breaking into vaults and stuff.
No, not at all. And that's one of the things that makes him so fascinating. He didn't see himself as a violent criminal. He compared himself to guys who pulled off big, flashy heists, like the one at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. He saw himself as different.
Different in that he wasn't really motivated by money, right?
Exactly. It wasn't about the money for him. He was obsessed with beauty and history. He stole pieces that he felt a personal connection to. And often they weren't even the most valuable things in the museum. He'd meticulously plan everything out beforehand, like casing the joint. He'd watch the guards, look for weaknesses in the security systems, like flaws in the display cases.
So he was exploiting oversights rather than using force. Clever.
Very. Finkel describes this incident at the Rubens house in Antwerp. The Adam and Eve sculpture there was housed in a plexiglass box, and Breitwieser noticed that it was only secured with 2 screws.
2 screws.
Area, right?
So he came back, blended in with the tourists, and over the course of 10 minutes, unscrewed the box and swiped the sculpture. Didn't even wear gloves, and Catherine was his lookout, and they got away clean.
That's incredible. I mean, it's audacious, but how did he justify all of this to himself? Like, did he have some sort of twisted moral code? He did have a justification, yeah. But it's pretty self-serving. He saw museums as prisons for art. And he believed that he was liberating these pieces, like he was doing them a favor.
Liberating them? That's a bit of a stretch.
Totally. He romanticized the whole thing. He pictured himself living with all this art in his attic, having his bed right next to some masterpiece so he can wake up and look at it. He even claimed to experience Stendhal syndrome. You know that thing where you're so overwhelmed by art that you have a physical reaction?
I've heard of that, yeah. But did anyone actually believe that he was experiencing that?
Not really. Most experts thought he was just making excuses. They figured he was addicted to the thrill of stealing. But there was this Swiss psychotherapist, Michael Schmidt, who assessed him and came to a different conclusion.
What did Schmidt think was going on?
Schmidt said that Breitwieser wasn't a kleptomaniac, even though he was definitely a menace to society and pretty delusional. He pointed out that kleptomaniacs steal compulsively. They don't care what they take, they just need to steal. And they usually feel guilty afterwards. Breitwieser was different. He was very selective about what he stole, and he didn't feel any remorse. He was actually proud of his collection.
So what was his motivation then, according to Schmidt?
Schmidt concluded that Breitwieser genuinely stole for the love of art. He felt a real emotional connection to these pieces. And Finkel also suggests that maybe he was trying to one-up his father. Like subconsciously proving that he could amass an even better collection than his dad had.
Fascinating. So where did he keep all this stolen art?
His attic. He basically turned it into his own private museum. Hundreds of paintings, sculptures, you name it. And he would spend hours at the library researching the pieces he'd stolen, learning about their history and provenance.
Wow. So he was a thief, but also a scholar in a way. Did he ever get sloppy, though? Like, did his confidence ever get the best of him?
Oh, yeah. He definitely got bolder over time. He started stealing during guided tours, which is crazy risky. And he even started leaving the empty frames behind as like a calling card.
That's kind of cocky.
Right. And law enforcement started to catch on. An inspector in Switzerland, Alexandra von der Meuhl, noticed a pattern in the thefts. The time of day, the types of objects, his preference for Flemish art, and the French art crime unit was also on the case.
So the walls were closing in. Did Breitwieser and Anne Catherine know they were being watched?
They did, but they thought they were untouchable, like they were too smart to get caught. There's this incredible story in the book about how Breitwieser stole this really important painting, Madeleine de France, from the Blois Museum. He just took it right off the wall, tucked it down his pants, and walked out.
You're kidding.
I'm not. It's wild. But eventually, their luck ran out. In 1997, they tried to steal something from a small private gallery in Lucerne, and they got caught.
After all those daring museum heists, they got caught at a little gallery.
Yep. Just goes to show that you never know what's going to trip you up. Surprisingly, though, they got off pretty easy. Suspended sentences, a small fine, and a ban from Switzerland for 3 years. But it really shook Anne Catherine up. She was done with the whole art thief thing. She gave Breitwieser an ultimatum. Stop stealing, or I'm out.
Did he listen to her?
Nope. He couldn't help himself. He was addicted to the thrill of it all. Even after they moved to Switzerland for a new job, he started stealing again. The book describes this incident where he tried to steal a tapestry from Gruyère's castle, and for a moment, he felt bad about it, like he realized he was being disrespectful to the art. But that didn't stop him. His final theft was a bugle from the Wagner Museum in Lucerne in 2001, and that's what finally landed him in real trouble.
What happened after that?
Things got really crazy. When Breitwieser was arrested, his mother, Muriel Stengel, totally freaked out. She decided to destroy all the evidence. She went up to the attic and systematically destroyed almost everything. Threw some stuff in the Rhone-Rhine Canal, tossed some more on the side of the road, even burned some of it.
She destroyed hundreds of pieces of priceless art.
Yeah. She was desperate to protect her son and herself. She even admitted to the police that she'd done it.
That's insane.
It is. So much amazing art lost forever because of her actions. The police did manage to recover over 100 items from the canal. They found the tapestry and some other stuff, but most of it was gone. When Breitwieser found out what his mother had done, he was devastated. He even tried to kill himself in prison.
Wow. So what happened to him and his mom?
They both went to trial and got sentenced for their crimes. Breitwieser tried to rebuild his life after prison. He wrote his own book and even tried to become an art security consultant. Imagine that.
Ironic.
Right. But he never really got over his compulsion to steal. The book makes it clear that he still struggled with it. He even went back to the Rubens house years later, the place where it all began. Kind of a sad ending, really.
It is. So to wrap things up, what's the big takeaway from The Art Thief? What makes this story so compelling?
I think it's the psychology of it all. Like, what drives someone to become a master art thief, not for the money, but for the love of art? That's what makes Breitwieser's story so fascinating and why this book is such a bestseller.
Yeah, it makes you think about obsession, about the value of art, and about the gray areas between appreciation and possession. It's a wild ride from start to finish, that's for sure. And we covered it all right here in just minutes.
That's right. Bestsellers in minutes, only on BookKast.
And if you want to dive even deeper into this twisted tale, I highly recommend checking out The Art Thief by Michael Finkel. It's an unforgettable read.
I second that.
All right, everyone, that's it for today. We'll be back next time with another bestseller broken down and delivered to you in minutes. Until then, happy reading.